Hello and welcome back to the channel, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that intro. It took me a little bit to kind of get that one squared away. I wanted to try some different editing techniques. Let me know if you guys want me to open the videos like that going forward. I really enjoy doing that. But first and foremost, I kind of want to give a huge shout out to everybody. We've had 300 plus subscribers since Triangle Strategy dropped and we started releasing some of these videos. So I just want to give a huge shout out to everybody. You know, it's been a while since I've been kind of doing YouTube. I'm taking it a bit more seriously now because I actually found a game that I really liked in Triangle Strategy. But I just want to thank everybody that's kind of taking the time to watch some of these videos. I think we're like most videos are averaging around like several thousand, which is kind of new for this channel. So shout out to all you guys. So today we have something very special. We are going to be reviewing all of the weapon skills, taking a look at what they are, how they're best utilized, and kind of ranking them at the end. At the end, we'll do kind of a tier list, the ones that make sense, the ones that kind of aren't worth your time, and it's kind of doing a tier list to see which ones make sense and which ones you really just shouldn't bother with, because some of these are really, really expensive. That's the question I'm getting more than anything else is, how did you get all the materials? Two things. The traveling merchant in the earlier stages, like once you're on your new game plus or your second run through and stuff like that, he normally sells 5 of each of the superiors. So you can get those early on as well, and make sure you just have the gil. When you run across him, you want to buy him out every single time. And towards some of your later playthroughs, I think like your second or third playthrough, Lionel will just have like 99. It'll just be maxed out and you can just buy from him. Like I'm on my 6th playthrough right now. He's maxed out. You can just buy 99 from him. But I'm not entirely sure when that happens. I've just been kind of speed running this game for the most part. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into it. But if you are new here, just make sure you comment, like, subscribe. Make sure the video gets as much exposure as possible. Give me a shout on Twitter. And hit me in Discord if you want to kind of discuss Triangle Strategy, tactics, and stuff like that. I'm always down to have a discussion about it. I want to hear what you guys have to say anyway, but let's get into the video. Go. This is what we're going to do for this, all right? So since there's 30 playable characters overall, we're going to do 3 or 4 matches showing off everybody's weapon skill. Weapon skills are essentially everybody's ultimate attack, and I'll break down how they're best utilized, which ones are worth kind of getting earlier, and which ones you should kind of wait on, because even though they're considered the ultimate skill, some of them are really, really situational. So we're just going to go ahead and actually begin with the 8 people that we have here, because it doesn't matter. We got to do the whole roster anyway. So you'll see jumps and stuff like that as I progress out the battle. Don't want to have you guys watching the entire battle for no reason. We're just focusing on weapon skills. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so up first we have Giovanna, everybody's favorite character after Roland. So Giovanna's weapon skill is Gaia's Roar, okay? So this takes 5 TP. So it's quite expensive actually when it comes to overall weapon skills. So it does pretty much what they like to do with all these weapon skills in this game is they like to do it in a cross, right? Horizontal and vertical. Not a lot of weapon skills actually hit like AoE and stuff like that. As you see here, these enemies have so generously lined up in a perfect line here. So let's take a look at Gaia's Roar. The description is deal non-elemental magic damage to all enemies in a cross shape with you at its center. So the animation for this is pretty cool. It does some pretty decent damage. I have it in normal mode right now. So this is what it looks like.
Let the very land of Norzelia grant me might.
And as you can see here, this is one of the few situations where Giovanna is, you know, if she could do that every single turn, she'd be pretty top tier. I know Giovanna is not well liked by the majority of the community. I love her. I think she's pretty good. I like her design and everything like that. She's just super situational. After somebody that's played Geomancers a lot in Final Fantasy Tactics, it's just, you know, that's kind of what you signed up for. So she's not always going to be the appropriate response in most situations. But you look at that, you know, on small contained quarters, she can definitely get the job done. So my recommendation for Gaia's Roar really is going to be small contained situations. Or if you are looking to KO a boss or something like that, really trying to utilize you know, the multiple hits if you can, if somebody are lined up, or if you have a boss that's kind of far away and she does happen to have a lot of TP, that's my recommendation for using Gaia's Roar. But again, like everything else when it comes to Giovanna, it's going to be super situational, just to be honest. Right now, moving on, we have the god Quahaug, pretty much the undisputed king of this entire game. I don't think anybody, there was actually one person in the YouTube comment trying to tell me that he's not the best character and he's overrated, and I was like, well, I think that really is contingent on your imagination as a player, honestly, because he has the tools to really just do insane things, starting with reverse space-time. So that's his weapon skill. Here's the description: revert positions, HP, TP, and status changes from all enemies and allies to their states from the caster's previous turn. So essentially what he does is wind the map back 1 turn. So let's take a look at it here.
Turn it all back.
So as you can see here, we're right back at the start of the map. The only thing that doesn't happen here is that anybody that died, they don't come back to life. That's pretty much the only caveat with this. But as you can see, it's in some situations, if you don't use it appropriately, like all that damage that she just did with her ultimate, that Giovanna just did with Gaia's Roar, all that's been reverted. So you have to be kind of careful with this and when you use it. But pretty much, if you just had a really bad round and maybe some criticals got off, or they just really outmaneuvered you, especially in a new game plus in very hard mode, just utilize this as much as you need to. Quahaug is obviously just ridiculous in this game, so he has one of the best weapon skills. I'd probably say top 5 for sure. Well, now moving on to Piccoletta, considered kind of a low tier hero in this game, mid tier, something like that. She has Copycat, which is the very definition of situational, even more situational, I would say, than something like Giovanna, because it's all dependent on what the enemy uses. Now, Copycat seems to have, on the moves that you would really want it to work on, it doesn't seem to work on it. Like, against some of the bosses and stuff like that, especially like really insane skills. Like I think Claris has like a really ridiculous like money throw skill. Sometimes the hit percentage is off there to the right. Like right here, it's 100% on something like long thrust, but don't expect to have a really high ratio, if not 0% on some of the boss characters. It just won't let you copy some of the more broken ones. If it could, it would really make it quite game changing. So keep that in mind. So as you see here, we're going to do Copycat, and she's going to get long thrust from this Cavalryman, which is fine. And I'll show you what it looks like when she actually pulls it off. So successfully copied long thrust. This is what Piccoletta's other half of her Copycat looks like. So the animation is pretty cool. I actually thought this was pretty good the first time I saw it. So this is what the other half of Copycat looks like when she actually uses the enemy skill. It's pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like nothing to write home about. For a weapon skill, I think overall it's slightly underwhelming. I ain't gonna front. Can't front on you. I think it is slightly underwhelming. My favorite weapon skills, and that's gonna be Lionel. Now Lionel, everybody knows he's really good for farming tactics and stuff like that, but this man, his last 2 skills that you unlock, Golden Opportunity and Endless Speech, are actually just S tier skills. Endless Speech only costs 3 TP, and it's really good as well. So if you want to actually field Lionel in combat, once you have these 2, I'm not going to say they're Milo level, but they're like right underneath them. It's really good. So Golden Opportunity is broken down like this. Throw your money at enemies to deal physical damage and tempt them for 1 turn. So this does cost $7,500. Depends on how much money you got. So let's take a look at it. I think this is definitely one of the better ones. So let's start at them. So you see that did a fuck ton of damage, 370. That's pretty good damage for an ultimate. It did pretty much on par with Giovanna's, if not more. And you have 4 characters on the field tempted. If the damage wasn't enough, the 4 characters tempt is good. So actually pairing somebody with a Lionel with a Medina or even a Julio, if you can get that move off consistently, that's a problem, man. It is a bit more expensive than Milo, but it does way more damage. It does damage as well. So if you're looking to KO people, it's quite extraordinary as well. So if you're looking to use Lionel, definitely utilize Endless Speech as well as Golden Opportunity. I would say it's a top 3 weapon skill. It's incredibly strong. And moving on to everybody's favorite character, Milo. Now I have talked about this in the best character guide and everything like this, but Power of Love is really just incredibly good. And the reason that's so good is because she has that evasion where she can go behind the enemy lines and she can avoid like obstacles and stuff like that. So in some situations where you wouldn't be able to get behind the enemy lines, she can. So with Power of Love, tempt all enemies within range for 1 turn. So this is what this looks like. All right. So it's I'm not gonna say it's on par with Lionel's, because Lionel's does damage and hers is 100% tempt rating, so you don't have to worry about possibly getting the tempt or not. It's gonna happen every single time, as long as base fodder based enemies and stuff like that, bosses, stuff like that, don't count on it. But if it's just fodder based enemies, so between her and Lionel, I have 5 people tempted right now. So Power of Love is just really clutch. It really can be quite game changing if you can get that off really when you need it. I don't really try and waste like TP when it comes to her, maybe with Heart Stealer occasionally if somebody's isolated, but really trying to stack her TP so she can get that Power of Love off. that's really what her high level utility is. So if you can really focus on having her TP level stocked, that's essentially having 3 allies on your team for maybe a turn or 2 until they get hit or cancel or something like that. But at the higher levels where you really need all the people you can get, just having, you know, that distraction on the field and stuff like that really is quite game changing. So she is incredibly good. I think that's definitely a top 5 weapon skill, if not top 2. You know, if somebody told me that was top 2, I wouldn't even be mad at that. It's really good. But moving on to Groma, because she is here next. So she actually has a physical skill. Let's take a look at this. So hers is Skyward Fist. Deal physical damage to a single enemy. The higher the enemy is above you, the greater the damage. So if there's elevation and stuff like that, say she's below them, think of like a Shoryuken. Shoryuken, Ken, Ryu, Akuma, stuff like that. This is pretty much what it looks like. It's pretty good.
Can you handle my might? I don't pull my
Pretty cool. You know what I mean? That's pretty dope. Not bad at all. Pretty situational again, you know, like that's not something you're really going to be out there using non-stop, I would say. So Groma has actually grown on me just a bit, so it depends on how you want to use that. I would say it's a physical one, right? It doesn't really do anything like evade enemy defense. It doesn't have much range. It's just, if you're looking to KO somebody that's above you, that's pretty much what it's used for. It's a decent weapon skill, but nothing really to write home about, if I'm being honest with you. Okay, so moving on to Benedict. So Benedict, I think, actually has a very broken combination with Dragon Shield as well as Vanguard Scarf. So he already has pretty decent speed. If you give him the Vanguard Scarf and he goes first, Dragon Shield is only 4 TP, and he generally has 4 TP by the time his turn comes around in most cases. So Dragon Shield, grant 1 instance of invincibility to all allies within range. So having this, being able to get this off at the beginning of each match is actually pretty stupid. So if you see here, Dragon Shield, and it's only 1 instance of invincibility, and the animation is pretty sick too. I like it. So not being able to take that hit is pretty strong, especially on pretty like squishy characters like Roland. That 1 instance of invincibility can be the difference between life and death for sure. Okay, now so moving on to Frederica. She has Sunfall, which I think everybody in the world at this point is pretty familiar with this and what it looks like and all that.
Tactical nuke incoming!
The flames consume you.
So I'm going to go ahead and show the casting and then also when it actually drops and everything like that. So Sunfall is best used if within tandem or now because it takes that 1 turn in order to cast. It's unreliable because enemies might move around and stuff like that, or it's not going to be advantageous for you to still do it. I've had several situations where if you're not using in tandem or now, it will literally just whiff. It'll just be a waste of turn and a waste of a lot of CP as well. So casting Sunfall here. So you generally want to use this if you have somebody immediately after you. In this case, I don't, but it's fine. So the next playable character that I have, I'm going to use in tandem to allow her to get that off. So that's going to be Anna. And actually more characters are polite enough to just move into the hit radius. Thank you. So let's use that here. There we go, Frederica. And I believe, do we have enough for hers? Let's see. Yeah, we have enough for Deadly Blaze. So let me show you guys Deadly Blaze real quick. So Deadly Blaze, let me read it to the description. So deal physical damage to a single enemy and lower their physical defense and magic defense for 5 turns. That's really what you're looking to get out of this. Anna, especially in hard mode and New Game Plus, and I like to always bring this up because these characters are completely different and very easy and normal. Once you start getting to hard mode, and especially New Game Plus hard mode, the character's utilities are completely upended from what you were used to having them do. Like, Deadly Blaze is really good, but what you're looking to get out of it really isn't damage, but it's really that lowering of their physical defense and their magical defense. So this is really good for boss type characters. I think at the highest level when it comes to Anna, she just really just traverses the map, take cover, and then find an opportune time to really KO that boss. That's really what her entire gimmick is, because she really ain't out there unless you get somebody in like a front and back situation. She's not really a damage dealer, you know, end game and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. So this is what Deadly Blaze looks like.
I will leave you defenseless.
Pretty sick. Okay, and that's the debuffs are really what you're looking to get out of that. And then this is the rest of Frederica's right here. Summoning a whole meteor, godlike. So the damage for this is contingent on how much TP you have. So her paired with somebody like Julio is absolutely just insane because she will always have pretty much max TP, and it does a lot of damage. You know what I mean? It didn't wipe anybody right there. This is normal mode right now, just an FYI. But pretty much all those people are on life support, so they're just one hit away, which is pretty much what you need. So say you had a Roland or something like that, you could just literally just come in here, do Flash of Steel, KO 3 people. She works really well with people that have multi-hitting attacks. They're all gone. Really good. So Frederica's is definitely incredibly good. Probably top 5. You're going to hear me say that a lot. There's a lot of them that are really good. As far, I think hers is probably one of the best ones for just pure offense and crowd control. Crowd control and pure offense, I think hers and Corentin's are incredibly good. So moving on to everybody's favorite numerologist, the walking barrel decimal. So decimals, just like everything else, is a target-based one. Calculator type based attack. If you're familiar with Final Fantasy Tactics, it just targets certain characters that have let me just read it to you. Use all TP to deal non-elemental damage to all enemies whose current HP ends with the number 7, right? So the last number has to be 7. The more TP consumed, the stronger the attack. So right here, only one person actually has it ending in 7, but this is a pretty decent attack. But again, I think this is the very definition of situational. I think that a lot of people give Decimal a pass because that's how he's designed from the ground up. But situationalness, people are kind of hot and cold about it. Like they hate Giovanna's situationalness, but they kind of give Decimal a pass because he's designed like that. He's designed to be situational from the ground up. Moving on to Geela. So we have Miraculous Light, which essentially is auto revive, auto life for anybody that's familiar with like Final Fantasy X or something like that. Auto revive is a menace in that game. You can keep coming back in life over and over again. So it grants an ally the ability to recover one time after falling in battle. So this is pretty broken, obviously. This definitely makes, this kind of increases Geela's utility by a whole tier. So if you had her at like C tier, you know, mid range, she becomes like upper mid, just because the auto revive in a game where permadeath, you know, if they die in a match anyway, they're gone for the rest of the battle. You know, you can't bring them back. This is obviously quite game changing. So I'd like to throw this on pretty much anybody that I know is going to be on the front line. I think even more hilarious is putting this on characters like the Dawnspear and giving him a resurrection ring. That man will come back 3 times in one battle. Just insane stuff like that. So Geela, this makes her one of the best healers. I still don't think she's necessarily better than Cordelia, but auto life, auto revive in hard mode, new game plus, it makes her a completely different character. It really removes a lot of the gripes that you have with her, but she is a slower character, so you would need like a Julio or a Medina to help kind of level her out, so keep that in mind. But auto revive is probably one of the best weapon skills, top 5 of course, top 5 weapon skill in the game. It's incredibly good, you know what I mean, and it completely evolves her as a character, because I didn't care for Geela honestly for 90% of the playthrough. I stopped using her after I got Medina, but that by itself makes her very, very strong for a lot of situations where you're dealing with characters that might be at risk of dying, so keep that in mind. One thing that with Serenoa that I'm starting to realize is that he's really designed to be in the middle of the fray. The way I played him in my first 2 playthroughs was I kind of play him out front, right? I let him kind of do a lot of like melee interaction and stuff like that. But even his passive skills and his weapon skills are designed for him to be in the middle, in the kind of the cluster of the group. Because he gets like a passive buff, like even being within the group and stuff like that. And in his actual weapon skill, under Conviction's banner, grant 1 TP to all allies within range. Pretty self-explanation right there. Pretty good animation. I like it too. This is sick. That's just ridiculous. The range on that is so good. It's only 1 TP, but giving 1 TP to a wide range of people is good. And actually, let's just jump right into Roland since he's already up next. So 4 dragons. Deal physical damage to a single enemy, ignoring their defense. So this is probably the #1 weapon skill to actually KO bosses. If you need to be up close and personal, you know, it's a situation where you don't have many range characters or something like that, but Roland seems to have a lot of TP. If he has 4 TP, then he can get this off. It ignores defense. So if you're using this, if you want to actually just throw some things to juice up his strength, because he's already going to be ignoring their defense, you can definitely make this a just a huge hammer. Obviously this guy's almost dead, so that's fine, but this is what it looks like. Pretty sick. All the animations for this is pretty good. I normally have it on fast mode, so some of these I'm just seeing their whole animation for the first time. So really this is good to KO bosses, problematic people on the field, people that you just need to get rid of. It doesn't really have much range, it's just the immediate vicinity, those 4 squares, but this is probably one of your best utilities to take down problematic people. Alright, now moving on to Julio. Now Julio's a character that kind of grew on me once I got him to higher levels and stuff like that. He is ridiculous as a TP battery. I do think that Medina is a little better because she can do it at a range. She can provide more TP to more people at once. This is his weapon skill, Intimidation. Let's read it. Deal physical damage to all enemies within range and lower their TP by 1. So this is good. It's pretty cool animation. It doesn't do too much damage. I mean, 190 is okay. That's really not much to write home about. It's cool. It lowers your TP, but I think I could not see a situation, honestly, where I'm using that over his abilities to provide TP to my allies. It's not that strong. It's probably good in a pinch, but unless you really need to reduce a boss's TP by 1, I just don't see it. I think if it was an AoE, it might be a bit better. And moving on, we have Trish, and hers is pretty good. Act Again, I think, is one of the better weapon skills. Act twice on your turn for 2 turns. So I think having the whole 2-turn things is pretty good. Makes her into a little makeshift Anna for just 2 turns. Pretty good. Pretty sick animation also. Nice. Okay, and it doesn't take effect until the next turn, so just keep that in mind. Don't think that you're going to be able to do it back to back, which I think that would be a little zany. I understand why they didn't do that. Moving on, we have Hughette. Actually, a lot of people, so Anna and Hughette were my favorite characters through my first run, but as hard mode and New Game Plus kind of approach, she just got benched. This kind of definitely, just being honest with you. But she has a pretty good weapon skill. Soar up high on Flugy, then deal physical damage to a single enemy from above, so this is good for wiping. So here we go. This isn't exactly KO him, but pretty cool animation. But this is as standard and as straightforward as it gets. Just a high damage dealing attack. Good for problematic opponents, people you need to get out of there, people you just need to wipe, right? You need to get them out of here. That's pretty much what it's good for. We have Rudolph's, which is Rain of Arrows, deal physical damage to all enemies within range. So this one is not really that good. I remember every single time I use this, I'm disappointed. This is good to kind of actually, he can hit 3 people here, but it does about half damage, which is fine. You know what I mean? I just really never felt it was much to write home about. It doesn't ignore defense or anything like that. It's just okay. It's a decent weapon skill, but for you're talking about 4 TP, there's just much better ones. You know what I mean? That I would be using it on, honestly. And actually, let's take a look at Avlora's. So Avlora's is Bloody Cross. So this definitely has the best animation in the entire game. Deal physical damage to all enemies within range and then knock them back 3 squares. Now, despite this having insanely great animation, everything like that, it depends on who you're up against. I traditionally use this just to knock people back. If she tends to have 4 TP, because you can actually just use Berserker 3, you can use her standard attack instead of using Risk and Maneuver, because that does hurt you. So I find that she actually has a decent amount of TP at all times, and that's not factoring in any TP batteries and stuff like that. So Bloody Cross, I traditionally just use that to knock people back. If people are approaching way too fast and I just need to try and create some space real quick and I don't have any traps with Yens or anything like that, Bloody Cross is terrific for that. So that was its primary utility. It looks sick. This is just godlike, but knocking people back, that's a pretty decent knockback, and it also does damage on them. Strength up, magic up, it's just good. It's just good. There's no other way to put it. Avlora is a very strong character, and that's just one of the many reasons that I like her. Alright, now moving into Corentin, we have Glacial Moon. Deal ice type magic damage to all enemies within range and freeze the ground. Reaches further and deals greater damage than Icy Breath. Now, this is pretty much the ice version of Sunfall, but it does less damage, much less damage. And it also is instant. It does not have the 1 turn of casting. But I think the best thing about this, honestly, is freezing the ground. This, and then use with somebody like Giovanna, you can start using Gela Barrage because the whole ground is frozen, and it also slows down enemy advances because of ice movement. is very good. I actually use this not necessarily for the damage. I use this more often for the terrain advantages. 9 times out of 10, I don't really use this for damage. So that's what it looks like. Nice. You see here, most of the ground from Corentin is completely frozen, you know, at this point. All right, now we have Erador with King Shield, which is probably the best weapon skill. You hear that a lot. It's probably one of the better weapon skills in this game. This is just broken. I don't know the other way to put it. Become invincible and infuriate all enemies within range for 1 turn. So as you can see here, it has a pretty decent hit. Look at the hitbox on this. If you were to put this man in the middle of, you know, 4 or 5 squares worth of people, you infuriate all of them and he becomes invincible for the entire turn. So this isn't like Benedict's where it's just, you know, the one instance they hit you, it goes away. No, this man is invincible for the entire turn. So they cannot hit this man and they're pretty much just locked in on him on a provoke. It's just busted. That's one thing that I didn't really use Erador too much in my original playthrough. Towards the end I started understanding how broken he was, but this by itself is one of those examples where the weapon skill just really puts him, it moves him from A to S tier, because this is just such a good panic maneuver. It just allows you to play completely differently with him, and it just really emphasizes what his entire skill set is about. Like, look at this, gonna go trying to attack him, he's invincible. Just come on, you know, what more could you want out of your tank? It literally is probably one of the best tank maneuvers that I've ever seen in a strategy game. So let's move on to young Travis. So Travis has heavy smash, charge for 1 turn, then deal physical damage to all enemies within range. So this is pretty straightforward, pretty decent hitbox on this too. So he's gonna charge, go. Now this is pretty decent. Like I did this, you know, on full life enemies and stuff like that. It's pretty decent. It's not that bad. But the whole charge for 1 range, I don't know how worth it is. You know what I mean? And that's what it looks like. Heavy smash, pretty decent animation too. Did 268, but it's good, right? The AoE damage is more than sufficient to make up for that. The whole charge for one turn, you know what I mean? Any of these that require charging for 1 turn, I really wouldn't recommend using them unless you have now fast acting medication with Medina or in tandem ready. Because this game is so fluid, and especially at some of the higher difficulties, it's just, you can't really bank on the situation and the scenario being the same as it was when you started charging. So I would just recommend having one of those 3 ready so that you can get that off instantly. Having a character static on the field for an entire turn is not a good look. So keep that in mind for any of these that are just charge based, okay? Okay, so moving on, we have the young lad Narve. So Narve has Mystic Beam, which is pretty decent. It does 270 damage, but it also heals 137 for anybody that's in the same line of sight. So you see this is vertical as well as horizontal. They love doing a cross-braced attacks and healing and stuff like that. The healing is pretty decent. It's pretty cool in this game for this special attack, but this is what Mystic Beam looks like.
Feel the might of my magic.
Pretty much Kamehameha wave. Decent heal. Nothing too much to write home about. I think that's just a very basic weapon skill. If you need to heal somebody and for some reason, you know, they're in the line of fire, it's decent, right? But I think that kind of goes in line with Narve. You know, Narve is just a generalist. He kind of is the jack of all trades, and I think that they don't excel too much in this game. So that's Narve's. So moving on to Archibald, we have Piercing Arrow, which is, again, they love to do this for weapon skills, is charge for 1 turn, then deal physical damage to all enemies in a straight line for 10 squares, ignoring their defense. One thing I like about old man Archie is that this man did not come to play. A lot of his stuff ignores defense, as well as has great range, critical rating, and stuff like that. This man is just like an assassin, essentially. So here we go, charge for 1 turn. But again, this is best used with something like in tandem, or fast acting medication, which we're going to use now. We're going to use in tandem, because I just, having this man static for a whole turn, I just think it's a yikes. Will not advise. So there we go. So he'll get that off next match. Okay, Piercing Arrow. Sick. Pretty good. Now we have Hossabara's, her entire weapon skill is pretty hilarious, actually. I love it. Catapult. Send an ally flying to any location within 5 squares and raises their physical defense and magic defense for 3 turns. So that last part is pretty good. So obviously this is handmade for somebody like Erador. I'm going to use it on Yens right now. But the whole buff, you know, they know that you're going to be utilizing this in order to send your tank into pretty much like troublesome waters, right? Into dark waters. So the whole buffs that they give them is very good. It's very, very the icing on the cake. So number 1 and 2 is definitely going to be Erador and then Flanagan, or even somebody like Benedict. Benedict has pretty good defense as well, Lionel. So keep those in mind for catapult usage. Right now we have the young man Yens, and his is pretty funny. I think this is probably the most hilarious weapon skill, automatic turret. So it puts down a turret that actually does take damage, doesn't have a lot of HP or anything like that, but it just attacks foes at random. That's pretty much all it does. Now moving on to Medina. Now Medina probably has the best heal in the entire game with this, but it is pretty costly depending on what your money situation looking like. I ain't trying to check your pockets or nothing, man, but it depends on what that wallet situation looking like, alright? So Celestial Solve. Use 10 HP recovery pellets to grant HP to all enemies. So this is what this looks like. Has pretty sick animation too. So giving everybody 150 HP, that's pretty good. I think that's probably the best healing base one for sure. That definitely makes her de facto like one of the best healers in the game, right? She out heals the classic healers. All right, on to the Dawnspear. We have high jump. This character, I just love this character. I love Dragoons in general. I love Kane in Final Fantasy 4. Didn't like Kamari in Final Fantasy 10 actually, but I did like Fang a lot in Final Fantasy 13. Dragoons have always been my thing, and this man is essentially a Dragoon. I jump to a selected square, then deal physical damage to all enemies within range. So that's what this looks like. So this is also pretty good because it moves him as well, but it has a pretty, look at the hitbox on that. That's pretty thick. So here we go. Good stuff. Decent damage there. Good animation. This man is just, Maxwell is just one of the best characters in the game, honestly. He brings so much to the table that I don't know what else to say. He's just too good. So moving on to Flanagan. Now, my opinion about Flanagan, you'll probably see this if you're watching these videos in sequence or binging them or anything like that. Shout out to you if you are. But my opinion of him is kind of been swayed a little bit. I understand his utility now. I don't think he's the worst character in the game anymore. He has his utility, but I still think he's underwhelming for what he was designed to do, in my opinion. So his weapon skill is Rampart. Decreases damage taken by adjacent allies by 3 turns. This is pretty good. So, this right here. Pretty sick. So protective aura. So as long as they're within his vicinity, it will reduce it. So it's pretty good. Now we have Ezana with Rite of Thunderstorms. Cast for 1 turn, deal lightning type damage to all enemies, and have a chance to paralyze them for 1 turn. This costs a fuck ton of TP. 5 TP. It is just not that good from what I found. I've used it a few times. The good is that, you know, it hits every single person on the map. It doesn't matter where they are, but it's one of those casting based ones, so you kind of need in tandem or now or fast acting medication. It doesn't do a ton of damage, honestly. I haven't found that it does a ton of damage, and the paralysis is around 25 to 30% depending on what's going on. I actually did Rite of Rain, so it would be a bit better with the puddles and such, but it's I don't think it's that good. What it looks like, Rite of Thunderstorms. And that guy over there in the corner is like almost dead, and it still didn't kill him. But for a charge based one, I can't. The amount of TP that it requires, I can't really justify its existence, honestly. I think I would rather be trying to KO people with Spark when it comes to Ezana. I don't think I would be wasting that much TP on it. It's just, unless you have somebody that you're trying to kill that's on the other side of the map that's running away, but even then it's not guaranteed to kill him. So it's I don't like it. I think that's one of the worst overall weapon skills, and I like Ezana a lot. That was my main mage with Frederica for my first run, but it just takes too long. It requires too much TP, and like I would rather be having her out there KOing people, actually killing people with Spark. I didn't like it, but let me know in the comments what you think about it, if there is better utility that you found for her, but I haven't found Riot of Thunderstorms, I just think is super hit or miss, honestly. That's everybody's weapon skills as demonstrated. So, you know, what everybody loves to do. Let's put this in a tier list, all right? Let's talk about which ones are the best and which ones kind of aren't worth it, right? So, Serenoa's, I think, is pretty good. His only requires 4 TP, and it gives TP to everybody within range. I think that's definitely upper echelon. Roland's is pretty situational. 4 dragons, you know, it's just... his is really only utilized if you need to kill somebody, like you need to kill a boss and you need to ignore their defense. That's it. That's pretty much the entire purpose for it. But it only being directly in front, in most situations, you'll just want to use Flash of Steel, honestly, or double thrust if you can. I mean, I think 4 dragons is decent, but having the range of physicals of Flash of Steel, I think it's just better, honestly. Benedict is one of the best in the game, and the fact that this man can almost use it at the beginning of every single match if you give him the Vanguard Scarf, I think is broken. His is like upper high, maybe top 5. You hear that lie? His fucking video, and I know it's going to be a meme in the comments, but it probably is top 5, if not top 3. I'm actually willing to put his top 3. Frederica's is just pretty much a nuke. It depends on how much you depend on it, but it really needs to be used with in tandem, fast acting medication, stuff like that. If you don't use it with stuff like that, then it's a little too situational. Geela's is one of the best, top 3. Miraculous Light is ridiculous. Auto revive in a game like this is that's just good, man. That just bumps her up to whatever you had Geela at before. Raise her up one more level once you get her weapon skill, because it's just too good, man. If you can get that off. Anna's is, I've explained, I don't think hers is like mid tier. It's only really used, hers needs to be used right with somebody else's. So you want to lower that defense or that magic defense and then like drop a huge like thunderbolt on them or something like that. But then, you know, she's got to get the hell out of a dodge. So she can find her ways to do that and get out of the way. That's good. Hughette is a standard damage one. Nothing really to write home about. It's decent. It's like low mid tier. Erador is probably top 3. It's incredibly good. King Shield. If they made the invincibility go away after 1 hit, I think that it would be like mid tier. But the fact that he keeps it for the whole fucking turn is nuts. I don't know who approved that. It's just crazy. That again brings him from like whatever you had him at, goes up a whole nother level. That's why one thing I've seen a lot, and a little bit of a tangent here. One thing that I've seen a decent amount on, you know, the subreddit, the Discord, Facebook group, and stuff like that is people like shitting on characters, bashing characters and stuff like that, but they're not actually playing the whole character yet until you've pretty much got them to level 50 and you got, you know what I mean, their weapon skill, because they're a completely different character until that point. And that's pretty much how it is with all RPGs and tactical RPGs. Some characters start off strong, like Roland started off really strong and then they kind of drop off. Hughette started off really strong and then they kind of drop off, and then their weapon skills I would rather have a stronger late game weapon skill than like, you know, early game they're really dominant, because these characters completely, it's like almost like a Digivolve evolution situation, because they just become completely different characters once they get these weapon skills. I think actually Rudolph's is one of the worst in the game. There's just something about Rudolph, man. I love this guy. When I played, I always had him in Archibald, but the more I play him in hard mode and New Game Plus, the more he just drops off. His skills just don't stack up with a lot of late game characters for sure, and his weapon skill not being that great is a part of it. It's only 3 TP, so you can get that off a lot, especially if you're dealing with a lot of like clustered enemies. Sure, you can do that, but there's just Rudolph, just probably one of my biggest disappointments in the game. Corentin, Glacial Moon, is really good for damage dealing, but like I mentioned, I only really use that for the terrain effect, or you know, if it's really advantageous. 4 TP is kind of on the heavier side, but it's good. It's good. You know, I think Corentin is incredibly good as a mage. I think he's right after Frederica and tied with Ezana. He's just really, really good. Julio's is kind of trash. I think it's garbage. Deal physical damage to all enemies within range and lower their TP by 1. I did say that it only hit 1 person because there was only 1 person, but this is the thing, is that you don't really want to have Julio in a cluster of people where this would need to be effective. He should be like hugging your mages or hugging the people that need TP. So you really shouldn't be having him somewhere to attack. My Julio really rarely attacks unless something went way wrong. And then, you know, to be in a cluster of people, that's very unusual. So I mean, if you want to use him offensively, that's fine, but I think it's mid tier. Milo's Power of Love, that's S tier. I think that's top 5 for sure. She's just, it's game changing. You know, it takes her already pretty good skill set. That guaranteed tempt is just too good. And the fact that she can get behind enemies, it is game changing. Cordelia's, oh, I didn't even do Cordelia's. 1 second. Okay, so we totally did not forget about Cordelia. That never happened. Okay, so Cordelia's weapon skill is pretty good. Above and beyond, grant HP to an ally ignoring the maximum limit. So what does that mean? So if you look right there off to the side, it has 820, 415, 820. So essentially what you can do is raise your HP past the threshold of what you have. So let's do this on the Dawnspear. This will raise them from 506 to 911. And that's pretty incredible. Having a character running around with 911 health is pretty ridiculous. So there really is a toss-up between who the best healer is between her and Geela. I think most people have Cordelia, have her edged out because things like regen and that right there, you know, having somebody on the field with 911 health is just insane. I don't know any other way to put it. I don't know if it's better than auto life. It's better to fix a problem before it becomes a problem, right? So auto life is designed around, oh, you fucked up, someone died. Or you played super risky and somebody died. This will just allow somebody to just be there forever. Like giving Erador double health and then like a resurrection ring and then like defense amulet or something like that. What's gonna be an endurance earring? That character ain't never gonna die. It's just stuff like that. So hers is really good. I think again, whatever you have Cordelia at, just raise her up another level because the weapon skill is incredibly good. It does probably gonna need to be used with something like a TP battery, but if you can get like that on 2 or 3 characters, it's pretty good, man. Like that's really, really strong. Moving on to Travis, I think that Travis is, his is good, but it needs to be used with in tandem. Now, any charge based ones, I'm not too much of a fan because that means we have to use another resource in order for it to go off. So I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's decent for what it is. Trish is really good. Trish is like one of those like subtle utility characters because when she gets act again, and that's only 3 TP. 3 TP is cheap for act again for 2 turns. That's good. Then you're talking about 4, you know, getting, depending on how you're playing her, you know what I mean? You're looking at getting 4 shots off maybe, you know, that's decent. She's not like a great damage dealer, but that can be the difference, you know, between a life and a death. So I like that. Avlora's is really good. Best animation for sure, but I really use it for the knockback. It is pretty expensive for TP. It does decent damage. Don't get me wrong. This does do decent damage, 274, but I think the knockback is fucking great. Knocks people back 3 squares. Get the fuck out of my face. It's really one of those situations. Hossabara's is kind of more comical than anything else. It felt like they designed this to be used directly in tandem with Erador. We're like, all right, man, you know, we're going to vault this guy over here. We're going to also, you know, boost their physical and magic defense. That's really good for Erador, Trish. It's going to be not Trish. Erador, Travis, Lionel, anybody that's kind of tanky that you need to move. That's good. Narve's is good, but it's pretty much just par for the course for Narve, if I'm being honest with you. You know, it's just, it does the damage, it heals people, but Narve just doesn't really have any standout things. He's okay. He's just a generalist, and that's the way generalists are. Celestial Solve is really good. It is for TP, but here healing everybody regardless of where they are on the map is pretty good. That's a pretty damn good weapon skill. Yen's is just, it's good. You know, it counterattacks automatically once enemies attack, but it's more comical than anything else. You know what I mean? I find utility for it, and I've used it a few times, but really I would just really use Springtrap nonstop. So I wouldn't really have 4 TP to be putting down turrets, to be honest with you. Then we have High Jump, which I think is pretty good. Sick animation, pretty good splash box also, but it is 5 TP. That's kind of expensive. Archibald's, it's a charge one, but it does ignore defense, and 10 squares is pretty far, so that's a good one. That's pretty decent. That's like mid-range, mid-high for damage dealing. Flanagan's isn't bad. I think there's like 2 different ways to use Flanagan. If you're like committed to using like completely like defensive method of Flanagan, his weapon skill is really good. You know, if you have him right in the middle of the pack, that will help save a few lives. So I definitely recommend. And then Ezana, right at Thunderstorms, I honestly think it's one of the worst ones in the game. If I'm keeping it 100 with you, I love Ezana, but I don't like that weapon skill. It costs way too much damn TP. It's a charge one, and it doesn't do that much damage. even with Right and Rain, you're still not out there paralyzing a lot of people. The paralysis rate's only like 25-30%. It's not worth it. Lionel's is probably top 2. Actually, it's gonna be a hot take. This is gonna be a hot take, boys. But I think Lionel is the second strongest after Benedict's. Golden Opportunity definitely moves him up a whole again, whatever you have him at, once you get Endless Speech and Golden Opportunity, he moves up a whole nother level, in my opinion, because it's just that fucking good. You throw the money, it does damage, and then has a chance for temp, but it does a lot of fucking damage. It does like 370. I'm on normal mode right now. That's pretty good. That's just decent damage. It has a pretty good AoE, and then the whole temp thing on top of it is just good, man. It's a really, really good bailout maneuver. If you can like pair him with a Julio or a Medina, this man, and you got money, of course, you gotta add that bread, you gotta have that dinero. If you ain't got that, then it's a problem. But 7,500 ain't that bad, especially in this game. Money's not that hard to come by. Check the guides. I did a few guides on finances and stuff like that. But I got it in top 3. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's really good. Groma's is basic damage dealing. It's like Hughette, you know what I mean? But it's good if somebody's above you. Piccoletta is probably the worst one in this game. If they let you copy some of the real broken stuff, like maybe like some X-Arms, like abilities and stuff like that, I think it would be good. Like she would be a must-have for some of the more troublesome boss characters, but it doesn't let you copy some of those from what I've tested. I could be wrong. Correct me down in the comments, but it's just like basic stuff, right? It's like too much of a coin toss, and why does she only have so few like skills? I feel like she just needed some more like love, man. Like I don't know, man, what they were thinking with Piccoletta. She's super situational. I love Decoy a lot, but it does cost too much TP. Decoy, I don't know if it would be okay to have 2 of them out. That might be a little too busted. She needed something else. She's missing something, man. She's just missing something. I can't say exactly what it is, but she feels like an incomplete character. Decimals is pretty good, but it's just like everything else. It's got to be that 7, and it's really expensive, 5 TP, and for a character that's got to sit still to recover TP, that's a little problematic. But Decimal's is really good. He finds his place more in hard mode and New Game Plus because his damage being so widespread, he has really good ranges. I think that's where he really shines. That's where he shines. Quahaugs, we all know, reverse base time. It's just like a stop button. You press that. It's just that's easily like top 7. You know what I mean? Top 5. It's really good. And that's the thing about Quahaug is that everything is so good that he's one of those like really broken top tier characters that it just gets boring talking about him because he excels in everything. He's just a god, literally the time god of this game. It's really good. It literally lets you fix all mistakes you might have had. It's just incredible. Giovanna's is decent for damage, but I think if they would have, I think that's the thing that I would have added with Giovanna. If they could have like had her do like some debuffs with some stuff, I think that would have been cool. But it's just raw damage, which is decent. But if you're gonna go that route, there's no reason to use somebody like her as opposed to somebody like Archibald, or Bloody Cross or something like that. 5 TP is really expensive. I'd rather give that TP to Avlora so she can do Bloody Cross and knock people back. It's just, I don't know. It puts Giovanna in kind of a weird spot. She's always in a weird spot, it seems like. But that's going to cap off, guys, talking about all the weapon skills. Let me know what you want to see next. And I hope this helped you kind of get a feel for how to use these weapon skills. And of course, it's always nice to look at what they look like, but kind of understand what their purpose is in battle. But as usual, guys, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. If you're enjoying this triangle strategy content, let me know in the comments what you want to see next. Until next time, LC signing out. Peace.